just NBA guys, and they uniformly agree that the moon landing was faked and that we didn't actually land on the moon. Now, this is a conspiracy theory. I mean, the idea is, the conspiracy theory is that because, we were trying to, beat the Russians to space, and, the Sputnik moment that everybody had, how scared we were that they were going to outpace us technologically, the Soviet Union, and so that they staged it to make us look like we actually went there and everything else. That's the theory. I don't subscribe to that. But some people do, which is just the way things are today. But anyway, the Babylon Bee satire website headline: Steph Curry questions whether Michael Jordan actually went to space to help Bugs Bunny win a basketball game. The show starts in 5 seconds.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Boy, we really appreciate it. Thanks for starting the beginning of your weekend with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. I'll tell you what, it is a wild news day if you really think about it, especially if you are following the news. It is a wild news day. Well, really, it's more about what's not being talked about than what is being talked about, quite frankly. What is being talked about is that the Washington Post, and of course the New York Times, is going to pile on and going to tell you that President Donald Trump is now under criminal investigation, or the inauguration. They hate this man so much. They hate this man so much that they are now investigating the inauguration. Now, does anybody find that to be incredibly consistent? I mean, they are now investigating the inauguration, scrutinizing, I think, foreign donations, that sort of thing. And this is the day that President Trump assumed office. I mean, I think it's perfectly consistent and fitting with everything that they are investigating, everything that they're doing to the president right now. I mean, at this point, we shouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, it's pretty frustrating. I saw that the headline on Breitbart when all this was going on was, "It never stops, it never ends, it never ends." And if you want, I mean, there's never been a president treated like this, I don't think, in our lifetime. And I know a lot of people would say, Barack Obama was treated bad by Fox News, okay, or by talk radio, okay. But there is uniform agreement between the mainstream media and even personalities on Fox News as well, by the way. I've got this article here about Judge Napolitano is the most inaccurate legal analyst, unless you're Jeffrey Toobin over at CNN. These people that kind of keep trashing the president over this Michael Cohen, sentencing to, being sentenced to 3 years. Anyway, there's like a ton of stuff to talk about today. And what is not being discussed, though, is that there was a hearing yesterday where Clinton Foundation whistleblowers were talking about how the Clinton Foundation would take their foundation and illegally use it as a brokering firm, essentially, for other countries. For example, the Clinton Foundation, according to testimony yesterday, was running the national health program for the country of Mozambique. Yes, and they said other African countries as well were involved in this. And it's just some fascinating information. And I watched that hearing live, by the way. I was watching that hearing live. I was very interested. Mark Meadows was chairman. Jim Jordan did a good job questioning. You had the Democrat from Washington, D.C., Eleanor Holmes Norton was the ranking Democrat on the committee. And, it went, they kind of went back and forth the way you would expect. But the information that we were getting was, for the most part, pretty good. There was a dispute in the Clinton Foundation testimony because the two biggest witnesses yesterday were actually not whistleblowers from inside the foundation. They were financial investigators that began investigating the Clinton Foundation because that's what they do. Now, they weren't paid by anyone to do so, but typically these two guys, they work for law firms to specifically investigate 501c3s, nonprofit organizations. Okay. Well, these two guys are in this hearing yesterday, and the committee wants their submission to the IRS. They submitted, under the whistleblower law, they submitted a probable cause claim against the Clinton Foundation with all of their information. Okay? Now, they did this, and the committee wants the document. Well, these two guys wouldn't hand over the documents. They said, we'll answer any questions you have, but we're not going to hand over the documents. And this made Mark Meadows and even the Democrat pretty mad because they were like, well, we want the documents. You've already given them to the IRS. So apparently there is a pretty big reward if you submit a claim under the whistleblower law to the IRS about tax fraud or being a tax cheat. That's their claim there. If you submit that claim, then you get a reward if the IRS agrees with you. But apparently, if you share your claim with anybody else, then you can be disqualified from getting a reward. And so that's why they don't want, because they have a profit motive. That's why they don't want to share the documents with the committee. Well, this made the committee very, very, very upset. And it was quite. And the only story, matter of fact, the Mark Meadows, let me see here. Is it a Washington Times article? Yeah, here it is. The Washington Times article, they actually thought this was the highlight. Oversight panel hearing on Clinton Foundation blows up. So that's interesting. Do you know what else was interesting in this hearing? In this hearing, these two gentlemen confirm that, yes, in fact, the 747 that landed in Little Rock, Arkansas, and had FBI agents reportedly, putting boxes on planes, was, in fact, the Clinton Foundation related. These two gentlemen said so. These two gentlemen said they've talked to Little Rock FBI agents on 2 occasions, that they did submit their claim, they did submit their evidence against the Clinton Foundation to Little Rock field agents at the Little Rock office. They even also said that there is an ongoing criminal investigation into the Clinton Foundation being run out of Little Rock. Now, we've heard this before, but I just want you to understand something. When that plane landed in Little Rock, and didn't it happen 2 days in a row or something like that? I think it happened more than once.
Yeah, I think twice in a day.
So the IRS, according to these two testimonies, their names are John Moynihan and Larry Doyle. They're financial investigators or financial analysts who say they've uncovered evidence of pay-to-play and financial crimes at the Clinton Foundation. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm pretty sure the plane was twice in one day because they were getting documents out of the state up to, I guess to D.C. And
yeah,
it was twice.
Going back to Virginia.
It was twice in one day is what it was,
okay.
If I remember correctly.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, maybe do a little quick Google search or something on your phone to see. All right, so the plane lands, and there was all the speculation. Okay, what exactly is it doing here? Is it Clinton Foundation related? Well, these two guys say that it is. As a matter of fact, these two guys say that they submitted their forms to the IRS, and the IRS sent them a preliminary denial letter of their claim, probable cause claim, under the Whistleblowers Act against the Clinton Foundation. And in that preliminary denial letter, the IRS urges these two gentlemen to send a follow-up with proof or, act like we are wrong, is what they said in the testimony. The IRS urged them to contact them again and act like they are wrong in their denial, their preliminary denial. So it's not an official denial. So in their follow-up, these two gentlemen submit documents that are photos of Little Rock FBI agents putting documents from the Clinton Foundation on a big plane. And they also reference, I think, specific communications between FBI agents, or they reference their conversations. I don't think they reference, I don't know if they have a documentation of the conversation, but maybe they do. I can't imagine there's text messages or anything like that. But they reference the two conversations that they've had with the FBI. And they describe the IRS's reaction as more than mildly shocked. More than mildly shocked when the IRS got their follow-up information. It was a fascinating... all I'm trying to tell you is this. There was a ridiculous amount of information that was given yesterday by these two guys on the Clinton Foundation, on the Global Initiative, on all of this stuff, okay? I click off on the YouTube channel. I was watching it, and I click off, and I go to the Drudge Report, and what's on the front page? Donald Trump, inauguration day, being investigated for misusing funds or taking donations from foreign governments or whatever. Folks, these people have real power. I want you to understand something. That is not a coincidence. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? You would never, ever, ever be able to convince me that it's not a coordinated, and listen, I mean, if you think the media isn't controlled, I don't know what would have to happen for you to, I don't know what would have to happen for you to come over on my side and realize that there is a level of precision and control in an attempt to control you that I'm very uncomfortable with. And I think it's to a level that I don't even understand. But I'm just telling you right now, I clicked off that interview, and then the first headlines I see are Washington Post throwing this story out, projecting and deflecting for the Clinton Foundation. Now, they don't say that. But if you don't think there were people watching those testimonies that had a lot to lose, and I mean a lot to lose, do you know how I know? Because what these financial investigators have found is that everybody who donated to the Clinton Foundation in this period of time would now have to pay taxes on that money because they donated to a fraudulent nonprofit organization. When we're talking about billions of dollars here, this is serious, serious stuff here. And really, I just, I was so I can't tell you how frustrated I was yesterday. I mean, I was just incredibly frustrated yesterday. Folks, the telephone number is 870-275-9799. All right, we've got a great show for you. Coming up at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking with Mr. Josh Waters, who will give us a task force update on the tax task force. So we have that for you. We also have, at the bottom of the next hour, at 7:33, Congressman Rick Crawford will be with us. Pretty interesting stuff. I love to talk to him more about his, him serving on the House Intelligence Committee. I think that's just, there's a wealth of questions there. But also the Farm Bill. Farm Bill has passed, I believe, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing, too. And also today is Johnny Cash Friday, so that's a thing. Yes. So we couldn't. Joe, you say you couldn't find something either way on the plane that landed in Little Rock a couple months ago?
Yeah, I searched a couple different places, and I couldn't find anyone to substantiate whether it was twice in the sense of it was 2 days back-to-back that planes landed, or if it was twice in one day.
Huh.
Now, there is someone who tweeted out the plane's flight path.
Right. That was happening back in the day. Anyway, my point is these two guys, that's the big news to me, especially if you're an Arkansan, is that all that talk about the plane landing, and, I think we kind of knew, that doesn't normally happen, but I'm just saying these guys, these financial investigators reference it, and they actually use the plane landing when they resubmitted their stuff to the IRS, saying there's an ongoing criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation being run out of Little Rock. Now, that is, I hope they bring charges. And who knows? There might already have been a grand jury, or might be a grand jury right now. Sean Hannity referenced that he had heard a grand jury had been impaneled. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll tell you this: wouldn't it be fitting? Wouldn't it be fitting? I've talked for a long time about how this state has actually been living into the shadow of the Clintons for a long time. They used this state as a springboard to become arguably the most powerful political family in the world. And Arkansas, all of this corruption that we're experiencing now is a result of the mechanisms, the environment that they came out of as well. And Arkansas we gave them the start that almost put two Clintons in the White House. That's an albatross around our neck, in my opinion. How fitting would it be if prosecutors, FBI, living in our state try to make it right? I certainly would. I would very much appreciate that. By the way, it's Johnny Cash Friday, a day where we try to listen to as much Johnny Cash music as we can. He's an Arkansas tradition, while at the same time peppering in the news and events of the day and the week. You've heard some of those. We're going to get right back to that when we come back. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in just a moment.
Good evening. At Christmas time, every home takes on a special beauty, a special warmth. And that's certainly true of the White House, where so many famous Americans have spent their Christmases over the years. This fine old home, the People's House, has seen so much, been so much a part of all our lives and history. It's been humbling and inspiring for Nancy and me to be spending our first Christmas in this place. We've lived here as your tenants for almost a year now. And what a year it's been. As a people, we've been through quite a lot. Moments of joy, of tragedy, and of real achievement. Moments that I believe have brought us all closer together. G.K. Chesterton once said that the world would never starve for wonders, but only for the want of wonder. At this special time of year, we all renew our sense of wonder in recalling the story of the first Christmas in Bethlehem nearly 2,000 years ago. Some celebrate Christmas as the birthday of a great and good philosopher and teacher. Others of us believe in the divinity of the child born in Bethlehem, that he was and is the promised Prince of Peace. Yes, we've questioned why he who could perform miracles chose to come among us as a helpless babe. But maybe that was his first miracle, his first great lesson, that we should learn to care for one another. Tonight, in millions of American homes, the glow of the Christmas tree is a reflection of the love Jesus taught us. Like the shepherds and wise men of that first Christmas, we Americans have always tried to follow a higher light, a star, if you will. At lonely campfire vigils along the frontier, in the darkest days of the Great Depression, through war and peace, the twin beacons of faith and freedom have brightened the American sky. At times, our footsteps may have faltered, but trusting in God's help, we've never lost our way. Just across the way from the White House stand the two great emblems of the holiday season: a menorah symbolizing the Jewish festival of Hanukkah and the national Christmas tree, a beautiful towering blue spruce from Pennsylvania. Like the national Christmas tree, our country is a living, growing thing planted in rich American soil. Only our devoted care can bring it to full flower. So let this holiday season be for us a time of rededication. Even as we rejoice, however, let us remember that for some Americans, this will not be as happy a Christmas as it should be. I know a little of what they feel. I remember one Christmas Eve during the Great Depression, my father opening what he thought was a Christmas greeting. It was a notice that he no longer had a job. Over the past year, we've begun a long, hard work of economic recovery. Our goal is an America in which every citizen who needs and wants a job can get a job. Our program for recovery has only been in place for 12 weeks now, but it is beginning to work. With your help and prayers, it will succeed. We're winning the battle against inflation, runaway government spending, and taxation. And that victory will mean more economic growth, more jobs, and more opportunity for all Americans. A few months before he took up residence in this house, one of my predecessors, John Kennedy, tried to sum up the temper of the times with a quote from an author closely tied to Christmas, Charles Dickens. We were living, he said, in the best of times and the worst of times. Well, in some ways, that's even more true today. The world is full of peril as well as promise. Too many of its people, even now, live in the shadow of want and tyranny. As I speak to you tonight, the fate of a proud and ancient nation hangs in the balance. For 1,000 years, Christmas has been celebrated in Poland, a land of deep religious faith. But this Christmas brings little joy to the courageous Polish people. They have been betrayed by their own government. The men who rule them and their totalitarian allies fear the very freedom that the Polish people cherish. They have answered the stirrings of liberty with brute force, killings, mass arrests, and the setting up of concentration camps. Lech Walesa and other Solidarity leaders are imprisoned, their fate unknown. Factories, mines, universities, and homes have been assaulted. The Polish government has trampled underfoot solemn commitments to the UN Charter and the Helsinki Accords. It has even broken the Gdansk Agreement of August 1980.
All right, we're going to bring everybody, rejoin the programs here. We've got two things running here. We got the Johnny Cash Christmas music, Christmas as I Knew It, in Dyce, Arkansas. And then we've got President Ronald Reagan's Christmas address from December 23rd, 1981. So we got that going for the online audience. And anyway, so how bad is it? I was just texting somebody about how bad is the government. Like, if we really, really knew how bad it was, how many people could handle it? You know what I mean? How many people could actually handle it? Babylon B. Steph Curry questions whether Michael Jordan actually went to space to help Bugs Bunny win a basketball game. That's right. On a podcast earlier this week, NBA star Stephen Curry questioned whether or not Michael Jordan actually went to space in the 1990s to help Bugs Bunny and the Looney Tunes win an intergalactic basketball game against the nefarious Monstars. While conventional wisdom has held that Jordan saved both the careers of several star basketball players and the lives of the Looney Tunes through his heroic matchup against the alien minions, Curry refused to take the official account at face value. I don't want to feed the conspiracies and stuff, but it's an interesting question, Curry pondered aloud. I mean, if you start questioning this stuff, they'll come get you, you know? The star point guard claims he's always believed that Jordan actually went to space as a kid, but upon a recent viewing of the documentary Space Jam, his doubts started to arise. It all started with Bill Murray's surprise entrance late into the game against the evil alien basketball players. I realized that Bill Murray is probably not going to be the guy you call on to win a basketball game, especially as a high-stakes matchup, you know, where your cartoon friends' lives are at stake. And once I started questioning that, the reality of the whole thing started to unravel. Curry also pointed out the subject idea that cartoons and humans could even play a basketball game. It just seems like something out of a movie, not real science, he said. So there you go. This is great. If you don't read the Babylon Bee like once a day, you definitely need to read. It's great. Obviously, Steph Curry made the news because he doesn't believe in the moon landing. So, and he does it all. He also doesn't think Space Jam was a documentary. Pretty nuts. Folks, we got half an hour left in this first hour. Coming up, Mr. Josh Waters at 7:05. Then Congressman Rick Crawford at 7:33. You're gonna want to stick around. Specifically at 7:05, when Mr. Waters, he was in the task force meeting on taxes that is now over. They had their last meeting, and we're going to go over what they've recommended. And this is important because it's the main reason we send politicians down there, is to debate how they're going to take money from us or give it back to us. I wonder which one they chose.
By which the Polish government recognized the basic right of its people to form free trade unions and to strike. The tragic events now occurring in Poland almost 2 years to the day after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan have been precipitated by public and secret pressure from the Soviet Union. It is no coincidence that Soviet Marshal Kulikov, chief of the Warsaw Pact forces, and other senior Red Army officers were in Poland while these outrages were being initiated. And it is no coincidence that the martial law proclamations imposed in December by the Polish government were being printed in the Soviet Union in September. The target of this depression is the Solidarity movement. But in attacking Solidarity, its enemies attack an entire people. 10 million of Poland's 36 million citizens are members of Solidarity. Taken together with their families, they account for the overwhelming majority of the Polish nation. By persecuting Solidarity, the Polish government wages war against its own people. I urge the Polish government and its allies to consider the consequences of their actions. How can they possibly justify using naked force to crush a people who ask for nothing more than the right to lead their own lives in freedom and dignity? Brute force may intimidate, but it cannot form the basis of an enduring society, and the ailing Polish economy cannot be rebuilt with terror tactics. Poland needs cooperation between its government and its people, not military oppression. If the Polish government will honor the commitments it has made to basic human rights in documents like the Gdansk Agreement, we in America will gladly do our share to help the shattered Polish economy, just as we helped the countries of Europe after both world wars. It's ironic that we offered and Poland expressed interest in accepting our help after World War II. The Soviet Union intervened then and refused to allow such help to Poland. But if the forces of tyranny in Poland and those who incite them from without do not relent, they should prepare themselves for serious consequences. Already, throughout the free world, citizens have publicly demonstrated their support for the Polish people. Our government and those of our allies have expressed moral revulsion at the police state tactics of Poland's oppressors. The church has also spoken out in spite of threats and intimidation. But our reaction cannot stop there. I want emphatically to state tonight that if the outrages in Poland do not cease, we cannot and will not conduct business as usual with the perpetrators and those who aid and abet them. Make no mistake, their crime will cost them dearly in their future dealings with America and free peoples everywhere. I do not make this statement lightly or without serious reflection. We have been measured and deliberate in our reaction to the tragic events in Poland. We have not acted in haste, and the steps I will outline tonight and others we may take in the days ahead are firm, just, and reasonable. In order to aid the suffering Polish people during this critical period, we will continue the shipment of food through private humanitarian channels, but only so long as we know that the Polish people themselves receive the food. The neighboring country of Austria has opened her doors to refugees from Poland. I have therefore directed that American assistance, including supplies of basic foodstuffs, be offered to aid the Austrians in providing for these refugees. But to underscore our fundamental opposition to the repressive actions taken by the Polish government against its own people, the administration has suspended all government-sponsored shipments of agricultural and dairy products to the Polish government. This suspension will remain in force until absolute assurances are received that distribution of these products is monitored and guaranteed by independent agencies. We must be sure that every bit of food provided by America goes to the Polish people, not to their oppressors. The United States is taking immediate action to suspend major elements of our economic relationships with the Polish government. We have halted the renewal of the Export-Import Bank's line of export credit insurance to the Polish government. We will suspend Polish civil aviation privileges in the United States. We are suspending the right of Poland's fishing fleet to operate in American waters. And we're proposing to our allies the further restriction of high-technology exports to Poland. These actions are not directed against the Polish people. They are a warning to the government of Poland that free men cannot and will not stand idly by in the face of brutal repression. To underscore this point, I've written a letter to General Jaruzelski, head of the Polish government. In it, I outlined the steps we're taking and warned of the serious consequences if the Polish government continues to use violence against its populace. I've urged him to free those in arbitrary detention, to lift martial law, and to restore the internationally recognized rights of the Polish people to free speech and association. The Soviet Union, through its threats and pressures, deserves a major share of blame for the developments in Poland. So I have also sent a letter to President Brezhnev, urging him to permit the restoration of basic human rights in Poland provided for in the Helsinki Final Act. In it, I informed him that if this repression continues, the United States will have no choice but to take further concrete political and economic measures affecting our relationship. When 19th century Polish patriots rose against foreign oppressors, their rallying cry was, "For our freedom and yours." Well, that motto still rings true in our time. There is a spirit of solidarity abroad in the world tonight that no physical force can crush. It crosses national boundaries and enters into the hearts of men and women everywhere. In factories, farms, and schools, in cities and towns around the globe, we, the people of the free world, stand as one with our Polish brothers and sisters. Their cause is ours, and our prayers and hopes go out to them this Christmas. Yesterday, I met in this very room with Romuald Spasowski, the distinguished former Polish ambassador who has sought asylum in our country in protest to the suppression of his native land. He told me that one of the ways the Polish people have demonstrated their solidarity in the face of martial law is by placing lighted candles in their windows to show that the light of liberty still glows in their hearts. Ambassador Spasowski requested that on Christmas Eve, a lighted candle will burn in the White House window as a small but certain beacon of our solidarity with the Polish people. I urge all of you to do the same tomorrow night, on Christmas Eve, as a personal statement of your commitment to the steps we're taking to support the brave people of Poland in their time of troubles. Once,
all right, ladies and
earlier
gentlemen,
in this
welcome
century,
back to the show. Man, that's really good stuff. Telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the program today. You can call or text that number. I want to go over this story real quick, and then we're going to get to a little bit of this government shutdown. So Fox News, they've got some good programming, and then they've got Shepard Smith. And so Shepard Smith and Judge Andrew Napolitano, who I've been a fan of Andrew Napolitano's in the past. Judge Andrew Napolitano, I've been a fan of his. I've heard him speak before in person. I have, really, really appreciated some of the things he said back when President Obama was in office. But he seems to be, he just seems to be anti-Trump. I don't know. Is he a never Trumper? I'm not really sure. But John Nolte over at Breitbart.com has a whole story about the appearance yesterday with Shepard Smith and Andrew Napolitano. He writes that appearing with Shepard Smith on Wednesday, Fox News' Judge Andrew Napolitano continued his winning streak of being the worst and most dishonest legal analyst on television not named Jeffrey Toobin. Spewing all kinds of mindless gloom and doom. You can watch the full segment there at Breitbart.com, while ignoring the all-important mitigating context that proves just how stupid his gloom and doom is. Napolitano painted a dire picture of President Trump as a felon. After Trump's former attorney Michael Cohen was sentenced to 3 years in prison, Smith teed up Napolitano with this. Prosecutors have told us through these filings that they have evidence that the president committed a felony. Naturally, Napolitano heartily agreed, saying this: the felony is paying Michael Cohen to commit a felony. It's pretty basic. Somebody hires you. A hires B to shoot someone. A is liable as if he had pulled the trigger. You pay someone to commit a crime, they commit the crime, you are liable, criminally liable for their commission of that crime, as well as they being liable. That's what the prosecutors told the federal judge. Now, Nolte goes on and says, keep in mind that this is coming from the same judge, fake news, who called proven liar Christine Blasey Ford exceptionally credible after hearing only a few minutes of her testimony. But here's the important information. The judge fake news, that's right, judge fake news is deliberately hiding from Fox viewers. At worst, he writes, at worst, this is a campaign finance violation. And even that is a stretch when you're talking about paying off a couple of scheming blackmailers who threaten to ruin your reputation and cause trouble in your family and marriage. There is nothing illegal about committing adultery, about paying hush money, about caving to blackmail, about hiding all of this from the public and voters. Nothing illegal about that. The only way this is illegal is if an overbearing government decides this particular expenditure was a campaign expenditure. In other words, something you wouldn't have paid for if you weren't running for office, which is absurd in the case of Trump, who has a decades-long history of aggressively working to kill stories that might damage his reputation, not all of them sexually related. And let me again, he writes, point out that Trump used his own money to pay off his blackmailers. He did not use campaign funds. It's just nuts when you actually listen to the facts versus what's being reported. I mean, what also, and he may say this here, we'll keep reading, but you know what he also, nobody talks about, Michael Cohen pled to a crime that isn't a crime. You understand, right? Like, he pled to a crime that's not a crime because they were going to actually charge him with more crimes, like lying to Congress. He did this. Well, and I was listening to the president the other day. I mean, essentially, yeah, you do. We'll only give you 3 years if you throw the president under the bus and basically embarrass the president. Then we'll get. That's all this is. But everybody wants Donald Trump removed from office. When I say everybody, I just mean people who have, whether it's certain personalities who go on Fox News, or whether it's the deep state, or whether it's people that really are upset what he's doing, changing the international order of things. I told you yesterday that if you step back generally and you look at what's happening, Brexit is an attempt to change the international norms. Donald Trump was the people saying we don't, and what he's doing is changing the way things are supposed to work for people who have been basically robbing America blind. Robbing America blind. You look at Mohammed bin Salman. He clearly is doing things different in Saudi Arabia, and it's making the global status quo uncomfortable. You look at what's happening in France. Those people are revolting over globalism. You look at what happened in Germany. Germany, Angela Merkel, she's gone. There are things happening that I can see, I can connect the dots, and I can see the general picture, and I can see this thread of consistency through it all. And you also see the people trying to stop it. And their one conclusion is that if we can somehow stop President Donald Trump, and what they're thinking right now is, what has he done in what's the country going to look like after 4 years of the president? People like, I really feel like people like Andrew Napolitano and the rest of them are like, after 8 years, what's going to happen? It's just something very, you can tell. What I think it really comes down to is money, honestly. I mean, the simplest thing is what I would say is anybody whose wallet's going to get thinner because of, honestly, I mean, they take our money, right? And they're continuing to take our money. Now, nothing has changed here, right? They're taking our money and they're enriching themselves. That's why Washington, D.C. is a utopia for jobs. Now, all of that is still happening. I mean, there hasn't been. I mean, our slogan is drain the swamp and everything else. We want that to happen. But, you see, there's so much stuff that goes on behind. There's so much stuff that goes on typically with when a president is in office that we never see. We never see. There are so many favors that take place. There's probably a list somewhere of the things that you're expected to do that we don't even know about. And the president comes in and he's just, you can tell he doesn't have to do anything just because it's the normal thing to do it. The normal way presidents have been governing this country for a long time has essentially, presided over the slow, gradual decline of American exceptionalism to where nobody was really going to notice. The shrinking of the middle class. And, the government is just so big right now. I mean, the government is too big. It's huge. It's humongous. You want to know how we know government's too big? Well, it's because the people of this country elected Donald Trump. They didn't think he was perfect, but they elected him. And the government is so big that his own agencies that are supposed to answer to him, they try to thwart him, they try to undermine him, and there's really not a lot he can do about it, as we've seen. That's how you know the government is completely out of control here. So, anyway, check that article out because this Nick Nolte or John Nolte article over at Breitbart on Andrew Napolitano I thought was very, very interesting. Now let's talk about the wall and let's talk about the government shutdown. President Donald Trump is now urging Democrats to avoid a partial government shutdown. And notice the terminology there, partial government shutdown. I personally, I'm sorry, but maybe this is bad, but I think I'm not going to be upset at all if he shuts the government down over building the wall. And I don't think anybody thinks he's bluffing. I really don't. So Donald Trump is prodding Democrats now to vote for more border security on Thursday rather than allow a partial government shutdown to occur before Christmas. He says the Democrats are absolute hypocrites, highlighting clips from Senator Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, talking about how they used to support border security. Okay? Let's go to that. Go to the realclearpolitics.com video here. Here's the YouTube clip, President Trump's message on border security. Listen to this.
The Democrats are absolute hypocrites. All along, they've been supporting walls and supporting fences and supporting all sorts of border security.
Illegal immigration is wrong,
Chuck
plain
Schumer.
And simple.
I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
The fact is, they've always supported fences and walls and partitions, but you know what? They only don't want to do it because of me. They have to put the people ahead of politics. We need to have the wall. We need border security. Whatever it takes to get border security, I will do it. I pledged that a long time ago, and I will pledge it always. We've done a really fantastic job with what we have. We can do an almost perfect job if we have the wall and proper border security. And that's what we're going to do for the American people. Thank you.
So the president here...
say?
Oh, no. No! The president here is... The president here doesn't do an excellent job. I will tell you this. One of the things that I have noticed about the president is that he will use, when trying to win an argument, the talk radio model of playing people in their own words. It really works. It's been working for a long time on this little talk radio model that we have in this country, thanks to Rush Limbaugh. So when you play people in their own words, you make them look like hypocrites. As a matter of fact, they are. That's the first thing he says. You notice how he gets right to the point. The Democrats are hypocrites. Plays Chuck Schumer, plays Barack Obama, plays Hillary Clinton. And then he shows, I don't know, for those of you listening to the program, he shows the immigrants rushing the border wall and everything else. In other news, related news, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, quote, Democrats have to decide if they love our country more than they hate this president. That is a bunch of truth as well. They need to decide if they love the country more than they hate the president. They don't want to. Their base will melt down if Donald Trump actually gets what he wants here. But, you know, then again, I was telling Joe, I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump shuts down the government and then he actually will hold the record. I don't know. We need to figure out what's the record for the longest government shutdown, because I have a feeling Trump knows what the record is, and I think he would want to beat it. What do you think, Joe? I'm serious. I think he would do it in a heartbeat. I bet you he knows what historically the longest government shutdown has ever been, and I bet Donald Trump will break the record. That's my prediction. It's worth nothing, but just, you know, take it for what it is. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute.
An evil influence threatened that the lights were going out all over the world. Let the light of millions of candles in American homes give notice that the light of freedom is not going to be extinguished. We're blessed with a freedom and abundance denied to so many. Let those candles remind us that these blessings bring with them a solemn obligation, an obligation to the God who guides us, an obligation to the heritage of liberty and dignity handed down to us by our forefathers, and an obligation to the children of the world, whose future will be shaped by the way we live our lives today. Christmas means so much because of one special child, but Christmas also reminds us that all children are special, that they are gifts from God, gifts beyond price that mean more than any presents money can buy. In their love and laughter, in our hopes for their future, lies the true meaning of Christmas. So, in a spirit of gratitude for what we've been able to achieve together over the past year, and looking forward to all that we hope to achieve together in the years ahead, Nancy and I want to wish you all the best of holiday seasons. As Charles Dickens, whom I quoted a few moments ago, said so well in A Christmas Carol, God bless us, every one. An evil influence threatened that the lights were going out all over the world. Good evening. At Christmas time, every home takes on a special beauty, a special warmth. And that's certainly true of the White House, where so many famous Americans have spent their Christmases over the years. This fine old home, the People's House, has seen so much, been so much a part of all our lives and history. It's been humbling and inspiring for Nancy and me to be spending our first Christmas in this place. We've lived here as your tenants for almost a year now. And what a year it's been. As a people, we've been through quite a lot. Moments of joy, of tragedy, and of real achievement. Moments that I believe have brought us all closer together. G.K. Chesterton once said that the world would never starve for wonders, but only for the want of wonder. At this special time of year, we all renew our sense of wonder in recalling the story of the first Christmas in Bethlehem nearly 2,000 years ago. Some celebrate Christmas as the birthday of a great and good philosopher and teacher. Others of us believe in the divinity of the child born in Bethlehem, that he was and is the promised Prince of Peace. Yes, we've questioned why he who could perform miracles chose to come among us as a helpless babe. But maybe that was his first miracle, his first great lesson, that we should learn to care for one another. Tonight, in millions of American homes, the glow of the Christmas tree is a reflection of the love Jesus taught us. Like the shepherds and wise men of that first Christmas, we Americans have always tried to follow a higher light, a star, if you will. At lonely campfire vigils along the frontier, in the darkest days of the Great Depression, through war and peace, the twin beacons of faith and freedom have brightened the American sky.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The twin beacons of faith and freedom have brightened the American sky. At times, our footsteps may have faltered, but trusting in God's help, we've never lost our way. Just across the way from the White House stand the two great emblems of the holiday season: a menorah symbolizing the Jewish festival of Hanukkah and the national Christmas tree, a beautiful towering blue spruce from Pennsylvania. Like the national Christmas tree, our country is a living, growing thing planted in rich American soil. Only our devoted care can bring it to full flower. So let this holiday season be for us a time of rededication. Even as we rejoice, however, let us remember that for some Americans, this will not be as happy a Christmas as it should be. I know a little of what they feel. I remember one Christmas Eve during the Great Depression, my father opening what he thought was a Christmas greeting. It was a notice that he no longer had a job. Over the past year, we've begun the long, hard work of economic recovery. Our goal is an America in which every citizen who needs and wants a job can get a job. Our program for recovery has only been in place.
Thanks so much for being with us. Again, mainstream media. Trump inaugural fund and super PAC said to be scrutinized for illegal foreign donations. That's the New York Times and then the Wall Street Journal. Trump inauguration spending under criminal investigation by federal prosecutors. This is on the heels of two Clinton Foundation financial investigators. Well, two financial investigators who were investigating the Clinton Foundation yesterday gave testimony in front of a subcommittee where they had a ton of information. We didn't get all of it, but we had a lot of it. And when it was over, we knew that, yes, there is an open investigation by Little Rock FBI agents into the Clinton Foundation. Yes, the 747 that landed in Little Rock, the reports of documents being loaded onto the plane were accurate, according to these gentlemen, because they used that as evidence when they submitted their probable cause claim to the IRS about mismanaged nonprofits. It was pretty explosive. If you find media reports about it, they're going to say, well, Mark Meadows was really upset that these guys wouldn't give up their submission to the IRS, wouldn't actually turn those documents over to the committee. And the reason they wouldn't is because of profit motive, because they were under the impression, advice of counsel, that if they turned over those documents to Congress, the IRS would then disqualify them for a reward under the Whistleblowers Act. We've got one more hour of the show coming your way next. Mr. Josh Waters, next hour, and Congressman Rick Crawford will be joining us. Stay tuned.